Hey guys, this is Eckhart Slater. Hello and welcome to another video. And before we get into this, I just want to talk about how the channel's been lately. I know that I've been doing a lot of sort of rambling content rather than traditional lore videos. I did that review on The Mandalorian episode 1. I did a couple of Fallen Order videos. I did that thing on the comic book art theft. I just want to reassure everyone who misses the standard lore videos that those will be returning next week. I've got lots of fun ones planned. Maybe I'll put some up in community polls for you guys to vote on. I've just really been enjoying taking a few days to just talk to you guys rather than, writing a script, doing the research, and doing the standard stuff that I usually do. I'm curious though, what do you think? Have you been enjoying these rambling videos more, less, or the same as you do my traditional stuff? Let me know that down in the comments. And if there's anything else you'd like me to talk about, also let me know that as well. Today though, I want to continue to talk about The Mandalorian because, as you might be able to guess from the title, it makes me extremely happy. Episode 2 of The Mandalorian dropped this morning, and so far I've managed to watch it 3 times. That's 1 time less than episode 1. When episode 1 came on, I remember I would just look for any excuse to watch it. I watched it in the morning, right when it first came out at 3 a.m. or whatever. I watched it when I woke up. I watched it with Kelsey later. Then my dad came over and I was like, hey, check out this show, because he was the one who introduced me to Star Wars, and we watched it for a 4th time, or I watched it for a 4th time. For episode 2, I watched it in the morning, I watched it with Kelsey, and before bed, I decided to watch it again, and that's what led to this video, because I've come to realize that the first 2 episodes of this series have certainly made me more hopeful and more excited than probably any Star Wars content since the original trilogy. Now, that's kind of funny because whenever a new Star Wars product is released, right before everyone sees it, we always get the advanced reviews where big Star Wars fans are saying, oh, such and such is the best since Empire, or the best since Episode 7, or the best new Star Wars movie. It happened with Episode 7, it happened with Episode 8, and it will happen with Episode 9. However, I'd like to think my response here is a bit more measured. I think, not a fair-weather Star Wars fan, but as an adult, I'm able to realize that not everything Star Wars is good, and I'm able to separate how something is subjectively by my standards, regardless of whether it has the name Star Wars attached to it or not. There have been a few things that I've really liked since the Star Wars original trilogy, and a few that I'd go so far as to say that I loved, almost as much as the original movies. One of those things would be Revenge of the Sith, especially with all this sort of EU context and the Clone Wars cartoon sort of informing the movie. The others would be parts of the expanded universe, especially the Thrawn series, Plagueis, and a few of the other books that you guys know that I love so much. And of course a few video games like Knights of the Old Republic. There's also a lot that I really like, including Star Wars Episode 7, but I can say without a doubt that The Mandalorian is absolutely my favorite, and I think the best thing that Disney has made while having the Star Wars label, and that includes video games, comics, movies, books, and TV shows. And I think I'm almost going so far to say that it might even be the best thing since the original trilogy, but I don't know if I'm willing to put it above my beloved expanded universe quite yet. Let me explain why, at least to me, and I'm fully aware that you guys might not agree. You might not even like The Mandalorian, you might think that it's one of the worst Star Wars things produced, and that's fine. However, Episode 1 was an absolute breath of fresh air. It was in the Star Wars universe without having all of the baggage that sometimes comes along with being in the Star Wars universe. It didn't necessarily feel like it bent under the expectations like some other shows or movies have. I might have articulated this better in another video, but it almost felt like a second A New Hope, in that it was sort of built in the universe, but a totally new take on the type of storytelling of Star Wars. It wasn't overly bogged down in fan service, in references to other works. Didn't find the need to connect every planet or thing to the greater story. It didn't seem to be quite as worried about overall lore as some of the later stuff has been, and I mean that in a good way. But it also possessed the qualities that made it feel grounded in the same universe, from the technology to the species to, most importantly, to me at least, just the general aesthetics and the hard to describe feeling of Star Wars, especially the Star Wars original trilogy. I don't think gritty is the right word because I don't think Star Wars is gritty. It's stylized, and although it takes itself seriously, ultimately it is silly. It's a brutal galaxy and a lived-in one, but it's also cozy in a way because we know that it's just a movie, and it's a universe that seems to have so much depth to it. The Mandalorian for me maintained all of those feelings while feeling like a continuation rather than a copy like, say, episode 7 sometimes did. But you can check out my initial review for more discussion about the original episode. I want to move on now to episode 2 and how it made me even more excited for Star Wars The Mandalorian. First off, besides for maybe some episodes in the Clone Wars, there's never really been something like the second episode of The Mandalorian in Star Wars. It was purely atmosphere and character building and just sort of slowing down to enjoy the scenery and what's going on. That's one thing that I think A New Hope also does really well. It takes the time to establish these locations, whether it's the Death Star or Tatooine or wherever else. There are just these little moments that almost make you feel at home in a location. The first 2 episodes of The Mandalorian have really done that. They're basically spent largely in these canyons where the focus is on the Mandalorian and his deepening bonds between both, spoiler alert, the baby Yoda and the kind Ugnaught that he meets. Many shows would have just had the Mandalorian go in, save the baby, and then he would have flash forwarded to the next planet. However, instead with this, we get the Mandalorian rescuing the baby, having to walk away, finding out what's going on with his ship, having to repair his ship, and all of that I think is a conscious choice to spend time with the character and building what we know about the Mandalorian and his interaction with others rather than just focusing on pure plot, which I really appreciate. I don't think it would have been possible if the show had been moving at the speed of light for me to already care about the relationship between the Mandalorian and the baby Yoda. But because it's slowed down, there's so much time for nuance, whether it's how the Mandalorian looks back to check on baby Yoda, how he almost takes on a fatherly vibe in a few cases, like when he tells the creature not to eat that little frog that's jumping across the ground, how he looks after him when he's recovering after his use of the Force, and how we see perhaps that there's a fundamental good with him, not only how he treats the creature but also how he treats the Ugnaught. The Ugnaught helps him out, and while it would have been easy enough for him just to leave, he insistingly offers him money. It's also kind of funny because for lots of people, it's sort of the background stuff of the Star Wars universe, or the little details that take hold. Whether it's the speeders in the background of Mos Eisley, the patrons of the Cantina, the background aliens on a Home 1 in Return of the Jedi. They're sort of like this living world. Mos Eisley feels like a living place. You see these people walk by and it's believable that they've got these whole other lives. Well, episode 2, it feels like really dived into that. Yeah, we knew Jawas were a thing, but this time we really saw how they operate, even more so than in the movies. And I think there's lots more you could say too about the new vulnerability given to the bounty hunter. And that's both in his skills, but also emotionally as well. I also think it's really incredible how this episode touched on the Force, because while you can make a Western movie with Star Wars in it, I think Star Wars is probably the best and most touching when the Force is a part of it, and I think the creators of Rogue One probably realized that, but the way it's been handled in The Mandalorian is absolutely genius. And I actually read the leaks before the show came out that there would be a baby Yoda, and I cringed so hard. I thought it'd be a terrible idea, and I'm just blown away by how well it's been executed. And that's basically my experience with the show as a whole. I reacted to the 2 trailers, or however many trailers there were, and just wasn't that impressed. I thought the IG droid was cool, but I just didn't understand where the show was going. Now, I don't even feel like the plot is the main thing here. I just want to see how the Mandalorian grows, how his relationship with Yoda or mini Yoda changes, and I just want to dig deeper into this little slice of the universe, if that makes sense. All in all though, this is definitely my favorite piece of Disney Star Wars content. I think it's better than Fallen Order, I think it's better than any of the new movies, and I think it's certainly better than any of the new books. And it truly is up there for my favorite since the original trilogy. Nothing has made me feel this way, I don't think, and made me excited for what's coming next. However, it's also possibly that there is a little bit of recency bias there, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think. How great do you think The Mandalorian is? Have you been underwhelmed? Is the short run time really bothering you? For me, it's been okay so far. I get that they're sort of going for a more serialized approach, but the problem with that, I think, is that The Mandalorian is only going to have 8 episodes for the first season, so it's not really a serialized Western, for example. I've heard the 3rd episode will be similarly short, but hopefully they make it longer. If not, I understand, to be honest, because the quality of what they've been putting out so far has just been phenomenal. But again, I'm curious to hear what you guys think, and remember, there's no wrong answers. You absolutely can disagree with me. If it wasn't your favorite new EU or new Star Wars content, that's totally fine. If you think it's near the bottom of your list, also totally fine. I look forward to reading your comments. Anyway, until next time, guys, this has been Eckhart's Ladder. May the Force be with you.